Welcome back, everyone. Coming to you from the beautiful coast of Maine in my studio by the sea. And today we're going to talk about some pretty exciting stuff. I know many of you have been dying to hear more about the Nikon Zf camera. And we're going to talk about it as a landscape camera today. And we're going to briefly touch on adapting lenses to it. And yeah, we're going to figure out if this is a legitimate, in-the-field landscape camera. And I think you know what the answer is, but let's go ahead and watch the video first. And when we get to the end, we'll talk a lot about it. I'll have more samples, so stick around. You're going to get some samples in the video also, of course, obviously. I'm shooting a bunch of things. And then after the video, we'll come back. I will share some different samples with you from adapted lenses, and we're going to talk about printing. I'm not going to show that for very long because that's one of the photos from the video. But yeah, we're going to talk about printing out of this camera and whether it's a worthy contender as a landscape camera. All right, let's get on with the video. Welcome back, everyone. Today I've got a real treat for you. We're heading to the Owls Head Lighthouse, and I'm going to be shooting landscape work with the Nikon Zf. What I am trying to ascertain is this a good camera for landscape work? Would I use it as a backup? Would I use it as a second camera? Or even as my primary camera? So what I'm thinking with this is, we know 24 megapixels is enough to do good landscape work. You can make very large prints off a 24 megapixel file. So what this comes down to is the camera itself convenient and well suited to be used as a landscape camera? I think I already know the answer, but I'll leave that as a surprise for the end. And yeah, let's get on out there and see what we can find.
Goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground. It's a dizzying day. I would give a lot to get away. It's getting real dark in here. Feels like I've been here 1,000 years. Could you bring some light to me? Or just sit beside me and never leave?
All right, so you can see this last tree on the point here. I'm going to actually make a photograph of that tree. I've photographed that tree before and I've never been happy with a shot off of it. Today might be a good day. We have some interesting clouds. We'll see if they're still interesting when I get set up. I should have set up first, but whatever. But I like the way it's sort of sitting out there on the end of that cliff. And so I'm going to try to set up a composition that looks really good with that. Yeah, let me get set up and I'll talk more about it. All right, so I've got it quite cropped, and this is going to be the first shot. But you see here, I have the tree sitting just to the left of a third line, which would be over here. And then the rest of the composition sort of, this line following down like this, to sort of almost divide the composition. So this is your gateway to what's going on out here. So your eye goes into the composition from the right, looks at this, and then heads out into the bay and comes back up the rocks and does it all over again. Now, will this actually be successful at what I'm trying to do with it? I think so. Remember, there's a crop on this, so what you're actually going to see is going to have a little more on the top and the bottom, because this is video. So unfortunately, the weather report was wrong. There is Zero waves, not even a foot, not even 5 inches. There's no wind. It's dead calm. Anyway, thanks National Weather Service. Maybe it's further out to sea that they were talking about. Anyway, so let's take the shot, and if it comes out, here it is. Just photographed that. And I'm trying to get up to the lighthouse, so as the sun goes down, we might actually get a little bit of light on the house itself. Could be cool, but I gotta get to a weird special spot to actually hit that. So I found this spot I really like to shoot from. It's a little dangerous to get to. There we go. This is the spot I wanted. And now, yeah, I need to come back up there. Okay, so climb down all these crazy rocks, and I'm guessing I'm in the frame. And so the lighthouse is up there, you can see in the distance, and I'm trying to frame that up in a way that works. And I think the obvious composition is the best composition. So got it framed up. I'm putting the lighthouse in the dead middle of the composition so that at the angle I'm shooting at, it doesn't skew the lighthouse. I want to keep the lighthouse nice and straight up and down. And the light is on in the lighthouse, which is definitely what I want. And now we're going to wait and see if we are blessed by the sun god. Well, I did 2 pieces to tape without even realizing they weren't actually being recorded to tape. We ended up having a beautiful sunset. It was so amazing, and I was taking shots in both directions. So I was kind of bummed about the lighthouse and the results I was getting up there. I didn't realize that my card was full. I'm an idiot. The light never hit right above the lighthouse. However, and I'm getting this back here, which is absolutely beautiful. So I got some shots, and you know, here are those shots now. So now that you've seen those, it's I'm gonna see if I can shoot some B-roll with the space I have on the card now that I deleted some files that shouldn't have been there to begin with. There you go. Welcome to the life of a YouTuber.
It goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground. It's a dizzying day. Get away. It's getting real dark in
Man, that was a fun trip. I love Owls Head. I love getting out there and shooting near the lighthouse. The rocks are beautiful. Of course, the weather didn't necessarily agree with me, and I was really fine with what was going on in the sky. I really, really liked that. But I was not terribly fond of what the water was doing, which was nothing. So, all right, let's, I've got some notes here, and I'm going to be referring to those as I talk to you about what I think of the camera. So, is this camera a competent landscape camera? Well, I think it's a silly question, to some extent, because absolutely, especially it being a full frame 24 megapixel, you can make huge prints off that. But we'll talk about that when we get to the printing side. I think it's definitely a good landscape camera. Anything you need to work around, as far as not having a massive amount of buttons, you can reprogram buttons all over this camera and put just about anything you need onto one of those buttons. As far as image quality goes, it's top notch. This sensor is proven, and I don't know that it is the sensor that's in the Z6 II. I think it's a new sensor because they've managed to get some higher ISO out of it, and I don't think that's just processor magic. But you know, I could be corrected. Ricci, if you hear this, shoot me a message and let me know if I'm wrong about that. I think you would know. I mean, you're Ricci. Anyway, so I enjoyed using it immensely. Let's look at my list here. Ergonomics. Okay, so I of course would not use it without the grip, because I don't shoot little primes like this, right? I shoot big Mamma Jamma lenses, which even though the one on that you're watching me on right now is the 24-70 2.8, it's quite a bit bigger than this and heavier than this even. If I was going to use that on here, I would have to have this grip. The grip is a must-buy. It's not expensive. I think it's $50 or $60, and it's made by Small Rig. And without the grip, the camera's still fine. But you do need something to hook it to a tripod with. And luckily, the Small Rig grip has an Arca Swiss dovetail plate on it. That said, here it is without the grip on it. Nice and compact, great little camera. And sure, you can use it with this lens. It's just not nearly as ergonomically easy to hold. It's a little front heavy, and when you're shooting a lens this big, you're holding the lens anyway. Like, how many people are picking up a lens like this and going like this? Street photographers do that, but that's why they use little lenses like this. Most people, they're shooting like this, holding the camera. You know? Yeah, okay. Anyway, Small Rig grip is a must. Nobody's making an L bracket for it yet, so that might be one of those things that gets a little bit in the way of being convenient for a landscape photographer, because you want to be able to, as you've seen me and many other photographers, I'm sure, if you don't already own an L bracket, you know what it is, I think. Hooks on here to the tripod, but also has an L. That's why they call it an L bracket. L that comes down with another dovetail to hook onto the tripod, so you can turn the camera vertical like this without having to turn the tripod head. L bracket. No serious landscape photographer should ever go without an L bracket. However, you can. And I know a couple of people that have never gotten into L brackets. They shoot some of the best work I've ever seen, and they just turn their head sideways, you know, the bald head sideways, and go from there, and it works fine. Anyway, that's the grip. That's not necessarily about the camera. The camera itself, the ergonomics are pretty good. If you're going to have bigger lenses, the grip is a must, because see how easy that makes it for me to hold it, and then I can hang it off my fingers, which you should never do. Make sure your camera's insured, guys. I go through USAA with mine, but you may go through, you know, whoever else. Just make sure it's good insurance. All right. Is there anything that gets directly in the way of it working well for landscape photography? And what I made a note to myself was, yes, anything that could be even just a little bit inconvenient. So I don't really like this when it comes to just standard landscape photography. I do prefer the flip out screen and not the articulating screen, the whatever they call this, the flippy screen, flippy rotatey screen, flippy thingy rotatey. No, anyway. But I do like it for walking around because you can close it and it gives you no screen there. I'm not talking because you shouldn't be chimping. You can chimp in the viewfinder. In fact, I do that frequently because when it's bright outside, using this sucks. You just look in your viewfinder and hit play and you can chimp in the viewfinder. But this protects the back of the camera and keeps the mirror out of the way, or I'm sorry, the mirror, listen to me, keeps the screen out of the way and keeps you from scratching the screen and makes it feel more like you're shooting a traditional camera, which I really like, and I'm sure there's going to be a number of people that really like it. The numbers on this show that to be the case. This thing is back ordered until May in Japan, and I haven't gotten any numbers on how long it's back ordered in the US, but I think it's a long time. It's because it's such an awesome camera. Listen to me. Nikon fanboy, right? So, one of the things I didn't want to step too heavily on comparison to the Fuji yet, because it's a touchy subject. And Fuji people get insulted, Nikon people get insulted, everybody gets insulted because they want their camera to be the best. But the fact is, this is a full frame camera in a legit retro body that works extremely well. This is what we've been asking Fuji for years. No offense to anybody Fuji, I'm a Fuji guy myself. But if I could have a full frame in my Fuji, it would be the perfect camera. I don't want to go to larger than full frame or whatever they call their medium format because I don't want those huge lenses. And at 50 megapixels, I can get just as good a quality out of my, we're getting off the subject here, but I can get just as good a quality out of my Z7 as you can out of a GFX 50R, so, or 50S, whatever the number is. So I just didn't see a reason to go up to a camera with big, huge, heavy lenses. And so I stuck with full frame. We are going down a rabbit hole here. Let's save this for another video. Okay, now, resolution. Can this make a competent 17 by 22 inch print? I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Oh, that's not 17 by 22 inches, is it? So that's I think that's, what did I print here? It's a 7 by 10, something like that. Right. But the question is, can it make a competent 17 by 22 inch print? And I'm not answering that question yet. Oh, wait, yes I am. Yes. It most certainly can make a competent 17 by 22 inch print. In fact, the quality on this print is pretty much insane. I was looking at it with a loop, and it's absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I can't even look around it. It's such a big print. These are the kind of prints I show in galleries, this size or larger. But generally, I don't go over this size. It's nice to go to a bigger size, but it's also incredibly expensive. That said, this is a 17 by 22 inch print. Obviously, it's not 17 because it's a 2 by 3 format file. So it's basically 21 inches. The image part is 21 inches by, I forget what the vertical on that is. So I'll put in some B-roll of looking at this print closer. Anyway, does it make a competent 17 by 22 inch print? You bet you're something it does. Yes, yes. It's a beautiful print. Like, I would gladly show this in a gallery any day of the week. So what does that say? If you're just printing 17 by 22s, just showing in galleries with the smaller size, it's still a huge print. You're fine with this. And with the new sharpening tools, the scaling tools, you can use AI scaling, and you can take it up to huge sizes. Interesting thing, I saw at the Nikon show a couple of years ago, they had a Z6 II print that was 4 by 6 feet. And you look up close at it, and you would never guess it came out of a 24 megapixel camera. So that argument is off the table. The only argument for the larger sensor is, yeah, sure, you're going to get a little bit more sharpness even at 17 by 22, but not enough that it matters. Nobody's going to be looking at the print like this. You should have seen me at the Ansel Adams exhibit. You know, I'm a printer, and I love printing, and I wanted to see what his prints look like really close. I wanted to see how he focused his negative, etc. So I had my face with magnifying, with the readers on, right up against these prints, looking at them. I must have looked like the biggest dork, but that's pixel peeping, and that is not showing your work to somebody. That's not me looking at the work. That was me looking at the technology he was dealing with at the time and seeing how sharp things were, comparing his 4x5 negative prints to his medium format Hasselblad negative prints. Anyway, I'm once again going off the path. So, resolution. It makes a very competent 17 by 22 inch print. I'm good with it. Let's see, image quality. The dynamic range on it is huge. I think it's, I couldn't tell you. It looks amazing. I'm not that techie. Let's see, battery life. The battery life on it is stellar. It seems like it's twice what I'm getting out of my Z7 with the EL15B, whatever the battery is. This is the C, and it seems to be a much better battery. And this camera, I think, is using the power a lot better than they did in the past. All right, we're going to talk about a couple of techie things. SD cards. Am I bothered by using an SD card over the CF Express that's in the other cameras? No. I like CF Express. It's really fast and really reliable. But SD has become very reliable and pretty darn fast. Do I need to offload my images and video that quickly? Not really. I don't need that speed. I'm not shooting wildlife at, 100 frames a second for 10 minutes at a time. So that's unnecessary for me. And the elephant in the room that everybody keeps talking about is, yes, it has dual memory card slots, but the way it's handling that is one full-size SD, and then next to it is a micro SD. I don't know why this is a problem. If you're using it for backup, then just copy everything off of the main card, and once you're sure it's all good, you erase the backup by formatting in the camera. You never even have to pull the micro SD out. And if you are doing like I do, shooting video with it and letting it overflow onto the micro SD, and yes, micro SDs that are fine with full 4K 60p exist. They're not that expensive. You can buy them pretty cheaply. And I have a 400 megabyte or a 400 gigabyte that just lives in the camera. And if I end up overflow recording onto it, easy enough to just either hook the camera to the computer through the USB port, or pop the card out and put it in an adapter and shove it in my Mac Studio. I just don't see the problem. Is anybody doing backup video from card to card? If they are, let me know in the comments. But I've never even heard of that, and so that's not an issue. It's just not an issue. You have one card that easily comes out and one that stays in the camera. If you have to take it out, it takes you a couple extra seconds. It's a tiny bit of faffery for something that just works great. I have no problem with it. So we're just going to move on from that, because I shake my head every time I hear somebody complain about the second card being micro SD. Oh my God, why is it micro SD? The world is ending. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. It's fine. All right. Oh, hey, here I go. Show my print and talk about the quality of the print image. All right, so the print is beautiful. I looked very close at it. The resolution is good. I used standard sharpening in Lightroom. This is just a standard print. I didn't do any special scaling to get it up to this big. Just standard printing out of Lightroom with standard sharpening. And it does scaling up to 300 dots per inch and then sharpens. Not aggressively, actually. Lightroom does a good job of sharpening for printing. And it came out absolutely stunningly beautiful. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how good this looks. So I think the prints are just perfect that come out of it. Now, interesting thing. I think I mentioned this before. This is not a second-gen camera. This is not the Nikon Z6 II in a retro package. Although I'm tired of this term retro. It looks like an old camera. But basically what they've done is just given us our dials back, which has nothing to do with film or retro. It has to do with a time when, you know, people wanted to have a tactile dial that they could turn. Right? I mean, listen to that. I love it. So, you know, it's not a Z6 II in a retro body. It is a third generation camera. Whether it's the same sensors as Z6 II, I don't know. I mean, we're basically floating on all the same Sony sensors all the way across the board anyway, because Fuji's using Sony sensors, Nikon's using Sony sensors. The only company not using Sony sensors in the mainstream is Canon. And we won't talk about that. But the 26 megapixel sensor coming out of Sony that they've been using from Sony for years, and I don't think, like I said, I don't think this is that sensor. I think it's an updated one, but that sensor has been unbeatable. It's fantastic. Everybody uses it. It's just a great sensor, and just like with the Z7. And I'm going to do a video on this. Is the Z7 still a valid camera? And I don't want to give away too much on that, but the Z7 has the same sensor as the Z8. It's basically, well, no, it doesn't. Let me put that differently. The Z7 has the predecessor to the sensor in the Z8. And the dynamic range hasn't increased. The only thing that's increased is the readout speed. And in fact, the Z8, it may be basically the same sensor that's in the Z8, because the Z8's a backside illuminated standard sensor. It's not stacked like the Z9. The Z9 may have the newest sensor, but the Z8, I think, is still pretty much the same as the Z7. And I may be very wrong about that too, but what I will tell you is the image quality is no better on the Z8 than it was on the Z7. And then the Z7 too, of course, because it was the same sensor in there too. All right. I'm just blathering. I think it's a fantastic camera. Next video I'm going to put out is settings that are the best for landscape work, and we're going to talk about fun things like adapting lenses, because you guys might recall, I love adapting lenses to my, see how light and small that became, and now it's this great walk-around camera. This is a manual focus. This, in fact, is, I don't want to give away too much from that. I'm making an adaptation video for it too, like I did for the FC, but Konica 50mm 1.7, one of the best lenses ever made, 50 millimeters ever made. Sure, it's manual focus, but image quality out of it's fantastic. And it's got character, which is something you don't see a lot of in today's modern lenses. Of course, characters, you could take it or leave it. You may want to start with the most neutral image you can and then edit from there, which is what I tend to do. Like, this is not a straight out of camera image. There are some people that live by the JPEG and they say, oh, it needs to be a straight out of camera image because that's the way, you know, great photographers did it. It's totally not true. In fact, Ansel Adams, somebody who's usually cited as a straight photographer, what he meant by straight was he shot the cleanest possible negative. He didn't do anything to the negative. He didn't do any crazy stuff to make the image happen in that way. But man, he would wring every bit of life out of that negative in the darkroom, which is what I tend to do. I tend to edit, and as Ansel Adams said, the negative is the score and the print is the performance. So, straight out of camera JPEGs? I don't get it, but I know it's a thing. Oh, did I mention the straight out of camera JPEGs in this are beautiful? And its black and white mode is fantastic too. I'll talk more about that when we talk about the adaptation video, because you're your friendly neighborhood landscape photographer Tom here is going to go out and try to do some street photography. Hey, look, my background is, my master's degree is in documentary photography and filmmaking, but I digress. Fantastic camera. I'm really pleased with it. There are things to get used to. All of those, missing extra controls, which is not a lot, but they are missing. You can put them either in your I menu or in your user menu in the camera. And that pretty much solves the problem of that. And yeah, she's a beauty. She's just so pretty to look at. And I keep calling her a she. What makes her a she? Is it a he? Is it a she? How about non-gendered? It's just a camera, right? Anyway, this camera does beautiful, beautiful stuff. I'm very pleased with it. And yeah. Hey, I want to thank you for coming out. If any of this was useful to you, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified. And of course you do. Why wouldn't you want to know when my videos come out? And yeah, I appreciate you. And I hope to see you again next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
It goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground. It's a dizzying day. I would give a lot to get away. It's getting real dark in here. Feels like I've been here 1,000